All right, and to help us dissect that is Dr. Alutalala Muhwana, who is a lawyer joining us in studio. Thank you very much for coming into KTN News Desk. Your immediate reaction to this latest developments on what Raila Odinga, the NASA leader, is opting for in what he terms as the only way to save the country from itself?
Akisa, thank you very much for the invite. I guess your question is, what is the impact?
Yes, what is the impact
of what Honorable Raila has said? I think Honorable Raila, last night I think, he said that the only option they have in the interim is to have a transitional government. This statement must be understood in the context of what is happening in the country. Honorable Raila has denounced the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. So in other words, according to Honorable Raila and the NASA fraternity, the president, as we currently acknowledge him, is not legitimate. And therefore, they have proceeded to engage in activities which, in their view, will bring down the Jubilee government. Actually, those are the words they have used, that they intend to bring down the Jubilee government. At this stage, when he says that what he wants, therefore, is a transitional government, he therefore is saying that whichever way you look at it, we have no government. And we are proceeding with the People's Assembly. He has already, I hope we have time to discuss the legitimacy and others of the People's Assembly. But he has said that, look, we have no government. And where we are now, we are proceeding with activities which will bring the proper government, according to them. But in the meantime, this country, Kenya, must go on. Public services must continue. We have education to carry on. We have public services. We have security. In brief, this family called Kenya must continue, even as the two sides continue to quarrel.
So is an interim government the only way out?
Good question. I do not think really I would say it is the only way out. I'll put it this way. Is dialogue the only way out? And the answer is yes. Look at the interim as a dialogue. Akisa, from the beginning, I've consistently said that the solution out of the quagmire that you have been in since the annulment of the first election was dialogue. And I said so knowing very well that what the Supreme Court had prescribed was stringent, was strict, compliance and conformity to the Constitution. What followed was some cat and mouse games between the two players, the NASA and Jubilee on one side. And the result was an election on 26th, which in my view lost legitimacy the moment IBC refused to comply 100% with the direction of the Supreme Court. What followed later really can just be a story. The problem that afflicts us must go back to the decision of the Supreme Court, whether or not the IBC complied. Luckily, that question will be determined soon, in 14 days, because Honorable Mwao has gone to court, Njonjo Mwe and Khalifa have gone to court, and I hope and believe that at that time, the court will interrogate the legitimacy or illegitimacy of President Uhuru's election. However, at this stage, it is not so much about the legality or otherwise. At this stage, it's about legitimacy. And I said legitimacy is not so much about legality. It's about acceptability of the election of the president. And acceptability has to do with the political dimension, not so much legal dimension. So whereas the court will sort out the legal dimension, legitimacy remains the elephant in the room of Kenyan politics. And only dialogue will solve.
The proposal that Raila Odinga makes is a situation where NASA will propose people, Jubilee will propose people, but looking at it legally, is there a way this can be done in a legal framework?
Akisa, the answer is plain and simple. Legally, there is no such room. Because you must understand where it starts. It starts at the point of the election. At that time, do we have a government or not? The answer is we have a government. When the president now moves from the president to a candidate, is there still government? The answer is yes. Is there still a president? The answer is yes. He is an incumbent president, albeit with reduced powers. But that does not mean that there is no government and that there is no president. The challenge which NASA has hung on is that the process through which the second election was done, just like the first one, was faulty. And therefore, by prolonging the incumbency, they are legitimizing a presidency which, in their own opinion, is a fraud on Kenyans, per their words. And therefore, their feeling is that there cannot be an elongation of the term of the president that is in its incumbency, not full presidency. And therefore, they need to leave the legality where it ends, because that's where the legality ends, and adopt the political dimension. Akisa, you must remember that politics and the law are not mutually exclusive. In any case, it is the politicians who make the law. And therefore, when you look at the legality and the legitimacy, you must look at it from both sides of the prism. It is the dialogue that is going to unseat this.
So in essence, what you're saying that is that our best shot at solving our problems should be a political way.
It is. Call it dialogue, Akisa. Call it dialogue. Because look, where we are now, whether we like it or not, we are in a stalemate. Of course, depending on where you are, if you ask a Jubilee person, there is no stalemate. What stalemate? The elections were okay. See no evil, hear no evil. If you ask a NASA person, they tell you it was all black. It was shambolic, no election. So really, we are torn in between. And as citizens of this country, we must have a way forward. The way forward is that even if the elections are upheld by the Supreme Court, the reality is that a large section of the Kenyan citizenry believe in the NASA position. And when Jubilee takes power, that does not mean that it does so to the exclusion of the rest of the country. And that is still where dialogue comes in.
Let's take a look at some of the activities that NASA is engaging in.
Yes.
The latest, of course, Raila Odinga suggesting that we need an interim government. We know that the debate on the people's assemblies in various counties has already begun with Siaya today. How legal is this?
Assemblies are not illegal. In Article 38, citizens have the right to make political decisions and participate in political choices. What NASA has done is to go to the counties with a bill and ask the counties to adopt a bill which will legislate the legality of having citizens to participate in this new body, which will be called the People's Assembly. In other words, NASA wants to use the county assemblies where they have control. I have not done the arithmetics. I do not know how many county assemblies NASA has control. But through those county assemblies where NASA has control, they want the county assemblies to make a law. There is a bill already that they have proposed. What that bill will be saying in simple terms is this, that we, the county assembly, say, of Siaya, we recognize that the elections were not right. In fact, it's written in such words. It begins by not acknowledging that there was a valid election. Then it goes on to say that since there was no valid election, therefore, the result of that election, namely the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta, cannot be valid. And therefore proceeding to say that we hereby propose to have a People's Assembly complete with an election procedure, what we call a collegiate, which will be used to elect those members of that particular assembly. Now, they are saying that this assembly will be inclusive in the sense that they'll not only be the political leaders, but they'll also be the trade unions, the civil servants, and so on. Once that is done through the county assembly, it really becomes a bypass. And it then goes up to the national level. So what NASA is doing is actually to create a parallel system that will be a bypass of sorts that ultimately goes to the national level and therefore takes the sovereignty from the existing government to the people through this structure that they have created.
All right. I have a